Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्ण।
Devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. You're famous through all of the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Guru Cham Rana Padamam केवल भक्ति सदमा श्री गुरु चरणा पद्मा केवल भक्ति सदमा बंद मुई सावधान माते बंद मुई सावधान माते हर प्रसादे भाई हे भवतारिया जाय हर प्रसादे भाई ए भवतारिया जाय कृष्ण प्राप्ति होय जहाँ होइते कृष्ण प्राप्ति होय जहाँ होइते गुरुमुख पद्मा वाक्य चिते ते करियाइक्य गुरुमुख पद्मवाक्य चिते ते करियाइक्य आर न करी हो मने आशा आर न करी हो मने आशा श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु सेई चक्षुदान दिल जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ है ते अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ है ते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेदे गाई जहर चरित वेदे गाई जहर चरित श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनार बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनार बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवन लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवन हाँ प्रभु कर दया दे हमारे पद छाया हाँ प्रभु कर दया दे हमारे पद छाया हे बेजास कुशुक त्रिभुवाना हे बेजास कुशुक त्रिभुवाना आहा प्रभु कर दया देह बरे पद छाया आहा प्रभु कर दया देह मोरे पद छाया जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद 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 नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Nitai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Nitai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yashomati Nandana Brajavara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Gopi Paranathana Madana Manohara Kaliya Damana Vidhan Amala Hari Nama Miya Bilash Amala Hari Nama Amiya Bilash Ami Hari Nama Amiya Bilash Vipina Purandara Navina Nagaravara Banshivadana Suvasa Gajajana Palana Surakula Nashana Nando Godhana Rakhwala Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sundarananda Gopala Sundarananda Gopala Jamuna Tat Chara Gopi Vasanahara Jamuna Tat Chara Gopi Vasanahara Bolo Gopi Vasanahara Yamuna Tat Chara Gopi Vasanahara Rasa Rasika Kripamaya Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natbara Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natbara Bhakati Vinodashra Yashomati Nandan Brajavara Nagara Yashomati Nandan Nagara He Gokula Ranjana Kan Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Oh, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. Jai Radha Kalachandji Radha Kalachandji Radhe. Jai Radha Kalachandji Radha Kalachandji Radhe. Jaya Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jai Gaura Nitai. Jaya Jagannath, Jagannath, Jaya Baladev Subhadra. Go Premanande, all glories. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parvijagacharya Ashtotarashata Shri Srimad Srila Abhay Charanand Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Thakur Haridas Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Rani Ki Jai. Saveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinama Sankirtana Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Samsthapak Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Balaram Subhadra Devi Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ji Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji Ji Ki Jai. Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Take your pick. Jai Radha Madhav Kunja Bihari Radha Madhav Kunja Bihari Radha Madhav Kunj Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana 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 Yamuna Thira Vanachari Yamuna Thira Vanachari Jai Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन 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 यमुना तीर वनचारी यमुना तीर वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Jai Radha Madhav Kunj Bihari. Jai Jai Radha Madhav Kunj Bihari. Jai Jai Radha Madhav Kunj Bihari. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvijagacharya Ashtotarashita Shri Srimad Srila Abhayacharanaran Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. Oops, sorry. Light. Okay. Let there be light. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama shloke Bhaktir bhavati naishtiki Krishne swadhamopagate Dharmajnanadibhisah Kalau nashtatrisham esha Puranadko dhunoditah 1-3-43. Keep it in mind. Okay, so today we're discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, entitled Divinity and Divine Service. Which text is it? 16? Okay, so we'll do 16. Please repeat. Shrushushoho Shaddadhanasya Vasudeva Katha Ruchihi Syat Mahat Sevaya Vipraha Punyatirtha Nishevanat Shushusho Shraddadhanasya Vasudeva Katharuchihi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipraha Punyatirthana Shevanat. Anyone else? Shushushoho Shraddadhanasya Vasudeva Katharuchihi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipraha Punyatirthana Shevanat. Shushushadadhanasya Vasudeva Katharuchihi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipraha Punyatirthana Shevanat. Shushushoho, one who is engaged in hearing. Shraddadhanasya, with care and attention. Vasudeva, in respect to Vasudeva. Katha, the message. Ruchihi, affinity. Syat, is made possible. Mahat Sevaya, by service rendered to pure devotees. Vipraha, O twice born. Punyatirtha, those who are cleansed of all vice. Nishevanat, by service. Translation: O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Please repeat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada said he put everything into these first canto purports, so listen carefully. The conditioned life of a living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. There are men called deva, or godly living beings, and there are men called asuras, or demons, who are against the authority of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, a vivid description of the asuras is given, in which it is said that the asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance, life after life, and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. These asuras are gradually rectified to God consciousness by the mercy of the Lord's liberated servitors in different countries according to the supreme will. Such devotees of God are very confidential associates of the Lord, and when they come to save human society from the dangers of godlessness, they are known as the powerful incarnations of the Lord, the sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord. But none of them falsely claim to be God themselves. This is a blasphemy declared by the asuras, and the demoniac followers of such asuras also accept pretenders as God or his incarnation. In the revealed scriptures, there is definite information of the incarnation of God. No one should be accepted as God or an incarnation of God unless he is confirmed by the revealed scriptures. The servants of God are to be respected as God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Again, the servants of God are to be respected as God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Such servants of God are called Mahatmas, or Tirthas, and they preach according to particular time and place. The servants of God urge people to become devotees of the Lord. They never tolerate being called God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God himself, according to the indication of the revealed scriptures, but he played the part of a devotee. People who knew him as to be God addressed him as God, but he used to block his ears with his hands and chant the name of Vishnu. He strongly protested against being called God, although undoubtedly he was God himself. The Lord behaved so to warn us against unscrupulous men who take pleasure in being addressed as God. The servants of God come to propagate God consciousness, and intelligent people cooperate with them in every respect. By serving the servant of God, one can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. The Lord is more pleased when he sees that his servants are properly respected, because such servants risk everything for the service of the Lord, and so are very dear to the Lord. The Lord declares in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 69, that no one is dearer to him than one who risks everything to preach his glory. By serving the servants of the Lord, one gradually gets the quality of such servants, and thus one becomes qualified to hear the glories of God. The eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee eligible for entering the kingdom of God. Om Jnana Timanantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Vinitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swabadantigam. Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Utapatagamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kant Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarpischa Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Madgavira Vigopala Swikuryat Kripaya Yadi Tadaiva Sampayaha Pitwa Hrishye Yustat Priyajanaha. So this is one of the most famous verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, one of the most important verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, Srila Prabhupada, as we said, told us that this first canto is the most important, and in the first canto, the second chapter is the most important. If you go to a place like ISKCON, Silicon Valley, you'll find that those devotees have memorized this chapter because they chant it every day. That's how important it is. Just as we have to recite the 10 offenses against the holy name every day, in order to guarantee that it's on our mind, we should be on the lookout for these things. So in the same way, the process that is delineated in this second chapter, divinity and divine service, is so fundamental and so important to Krishna consciousness that it will do us well to actually memorize every verse and meditate on them. So we selected this verse today for that reason, to help us a little deeper understand what is the importance of this principle here that's being described. If we don't have a taste for hearing, or if we have a taste only for hearing certain things about Krishna, then it's a problem. Actually, we have to have a taste for hearing about Vasudeva, anything to do with Vasudeva. And that taste is not so easy to develop, actually. And we may be surprised to learn, despite the fact that we're here in the Srimad Bhagavatam class, we don't have that taste. Not really, not yet. It's a deeper thing than we think. And we heard in the previous text, which I'll recite, Yadanudhyasina yuktaha sarva karma granthine bandhanam chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat katharadim. Here he's asking, rhetorical question, with sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work or karma by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his messages? This is the question. And Sridhar Swami, in his commentary on this verse, he has stated that if it's understood that hearing about Krishna cuts through the knots of karmic reactions, such that we're liberated just by hearing, then why is it that we don't really have a taste? So therefore he speaks today's verse, Shushusho Shadatanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipraha Punya Tirtha Nishevana. Just to give us a clue, how do we develop a taste? If we don't have that taste, what do we do about it? And this is the answer. You serve pure devotees. Mahat Seva. And in the Acharya's commentaries on this verse, Mahat Seva is also defined. It means serving that person who is Mahatma, great souls. And it also means doing great service to the great souls. Mahat Seva, Mahat can be the adjective of Seva, or it can be the adjective of the recipient of your service. Either way, Mahat Seva is the way to gain a taste for hearing about Krishna. So then the question is, well, who are these Mahatmas? And that's answered here, Punya Tirtha. Punya Tirtha. What does Tirtha mean? Holy place. We generally think, Tirtha, we go to, say, Tiruchendur. It's a Tirtha, a holy place. People are worshipping the demigod Skanda there. I know because I go there all the time to preach. And so it's undoubtedly a holy place. We become purified by going to such places. Or if we go to the bank of the Ganga and we humbly offer respects and take bath in the Ganga, we will be purified. In the first canto, again in the 10th canto, throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's described. These holy rivers and these sacred places, they purify us, no doubt. But that purification takes a long time. It doesn't happen immediately. But if we take advantage of the real Mahatma and the pure devotee and serve him, then the effect is immediate. We are immediately blessed with Krishna's mercy, and we gain a taste for hearing about Vasudeva. So who is this Mahat, or who is this Mahatma, or who is this person? Tirtha, Punya Tirtha means those Tirthas, or those holy men also, or women for that matter, who are Punya. They're pious. In other words, they're pure. So all the Acharyas commenting here, they say that Mahat Seva, or Punya Tirtha Nishevana, that means to serve the pure devotee who is free from all vice. Where does Srila Prabhupada get this in his translation? There's no mention of vice. If you look at the Sanskrit and carefully peruse the word-for-word synonyms, there's no mention of vice anywhere. So where is he getting this idea from? He gets it from Sridhar Swami and from Sanatana Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. All the Acharyas agree on this point. Someone who is free from sin. Raise your hand if you're free from sin. Yeah, not many of us are. But if we can find someone who is actually sinless, then we should serve that person. And then we will gain a taste for hearing about Vasudeva. These persons do exist in the world. Krishna tells us, well, actually, Srila Prabhupada also tells us here in the purport. He says, can't locate it just now, but in this purport we've already heard that these servants are distributed throughout the world by Krishna's arrangement, just to deliver the conditioned souls. And if we can recognize them and not offend them, and actually take shelter of them and serve them, then we also gain a taste for hearing about Vasudeva. So Punyatirtha Nishevanat or Mahatseva, it has to be qualified in this way. And it's interesting because a very closely related verse, and one that I think Jiva Goswami cites in his own commentary on today's verse, is 3rd Canto, chapter 25, text number 25. Who knows that verse? It's a very, very famous verse. I'll give you a hint. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kathaha. Adi? That was a very important verse. Very, very important verse. Bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kathaha. The Tajoshanat Ashuapavarga Vartmani, when we take shelter of pure devotees and associate with them, they're called Sat in this verse, 3rd Canto verse. Anybody know the 3rd line offhand? I don't remember. Satam prasangam mavirya samviro bhavanti hritkarna rasayana katha tajoshanat ashvapavarga vartmani shraddharatir bhaktir anukramashyati. It's really, you can't understand today's verse without also understanding that verse, so we'll speak on that as well. But it's kind of like the purport to today's verse. It unpacks the things that are only, said in a very pithy or compact way in today's verse. They're explained further by all the acharyas in the 3rd canto, when Kapila Dev himself points out that we make advancement in stages. Shraddha, ratir, bhaktir, and anukramashyati. Those who were listening on Sunday evening, we gave a lecture on Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, text number 10, in which Srila Prabhupada mentions very nicely that we become freed from attachment, fear, and anger, and we become purified. And thus we attain bhava bhakti. But Srila Prabhupada chose to comment on that verse that the second half of his whole purport is devoted to explaining what the stages of bhakti are. What are the stages of bhakti? Beginning with Shraddha. Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartana Vritti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, Prema. 9 stages that we have to go through. Those are all just hinted at by Kapila Dev himself when he tells his mother, Shraddha, Ratir, Bhaktir, Anukramashyati. Anukramashyati means you'll proceed step by step. He doesn't delineate all the steps, but there are steps. And here in the 1st canto, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur actually breaks those 8 or 9 steps down into further subdivisions. He gives, I think, 14 or... Yeah, you've seen this. So this is another thing to consider. We have to, as Prabhupada said, we have to carefully study these books in the way that a lawyer studies the law. Because if you're going to impose law on someone and change someone's life by potentially sending them to prison or not, you'd better know what you're doing, otherwise you get the karmic reaction. So in the same way, when we're preaching Krishna consciousness, we had better be sure that what we're preaching is the authorized thing, and we're not concocting anything, because we have a constant tendency to invent things or to guess or to just wing it. It doesn't work. We described the other night, you have your faith. It may be a natural faith, but that faith is not sufficient. You have to actually study. You have to invest in your faith and study Srila Prabhupada's books the way that he asked us to. How did he ask us to study? At least what? Generally, the recommendation from Srila Prabhupada was 1 hour every day. 1 hour. Busy householders are considered fallen only because they don't have time to do that. Actually, there is time, but you have to prioritize it. So we're busy, procuring sense gratification and ensuring that there's no, we're safe against so many threats. Defense Department, and we spend our time in these other 4 things: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. This is where our attention goes. This is what absorbs our minds. That's why the persons who are only doing those things are called griha medhi. Medhi means his head is full of this stuff. And grihastha means he's upholding his responsibilities within that ashram, but his actual purpose is self-realization. So a householder also can read these books and can prioritize that study. And it should be so, because I'm speaking from my recollection. There are not very many things that Srila Prabhupada criticized about his disciples. Srila Prabhupada in general, he felt that his disciples were good and sincere. In fact, he didn't have any success in preaching Krishna consciousness until he came to the West and started preaching to Westerners who at least realize that they don't know anything about this. In India, hum sab jante hain, koi zarurat nahi. We know everything. We don't have time for this old-fashioned bhajan nonsense. Prabhupada said this in Mumbai. This is the attitude he was dealing with. And so nobody would take it seriously in India. Srila Prabhupada could see, okay, my Guru Maharaj asked me to preach in the English language. They're not listening here. Let me go to the West and do it there. It was intelligent because his plan worked. The Krishna consciousness spread throughout the Western world and came back to India, and now it's unbelievably expanding in India. I mean, really just unbelievable. I don't think anybody even can keep track of the number of temples that are opening in India. Gopal Krishna Maharaj has opened 18 temples in Delhi alone. 18, and this is not centers or Namahatta kind of, this is full-fledged stone temples built from scratch. Radha Krishna deities installed, full institution. 18 of them. And it's still not enough to meet the demand, actually. Since the pandemic ended, there has been a 300% increase of pilgrims coming to Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan. 300%. The crowds are so intense that the temple authorities are pulling out their hairs trying to figure out how to manage it. It's almost unmanageable. It can be dangerous, actually. Once I saw Guru Kripa Maharaj, former Guru, he was previously Maharaj, Guru Kripa. He's the one who funded that temple. He built it in the 1970s. And he himself could not get into that temple because the crowds were too thick. He's trying to elbow his way through the crowd, and nobody even knows who he is, that he's the one who built the thing. So, anyway, this is Srila Prabhupada's success. Now the Indians are becoming a little bit serious about Krishna consciousness because the Westerners have given them permission. Everyone knows. Indians will not touch anything unless they get permission from the Videshis. That is maybe a perversion of the innate Shishya Bhav that all Indians display. But anyway, now it's exploding in India. Everywhere temples are opening. 20,000 plates of Khichdi Prasadam every day was distributed in Krishna Balaram Mandir. At least 2,000 of Srila Prabhupada's books are going out. 100 people on an average come in the morning and they are taught how to chant japa. 100 people a day. Why isn't that happening here in Dallas? It's something to think about, isn't it? So, the idea is that Srila Prabhupada had a brilliant strategy to spread Krishna consciousness, and it worked. And now some of these adventurous Indians who have taken up Srila Prabhupada's instructions and are hearing very carefully because they have enough piety to do that, they're also coming to the West and preaching successfully here in America. For example, the biggest book distributor in the world happens to be a South Indian, Mahotsaha, from India. He's in Atlanta. You all know this, I'm sure. So it's hard to ignore if somebody's distributing thousands of books, and one man distributing as many books as the Krishna Balaram Temple distributes every day. So, what is the key here? The key is you have to find someone who is sinless devotee, like Srila Prabhupada, and serve him. And you can, even now you can serve Srila Prabhupada, but it's of course very helpful to get the direct guidance of somebody that you can speak with and who can chastise you and who can initiate you and whatnot. That is necessary. So, shushoshoho shradathanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syat Mahatsevaya. This taste for hearing about Vasudeva for a person who may have faith and who is a little careful about this process, but doesn't necessarily have a strong taste yet, you can get that taste by serving the orders of the pure devotee. And Srila Prabhupada's orders are still standing. All the orders, even the little ones, he said. Guru mukha padma bhakko chitete koryaiko. What does it mean? How serious are we about these words that we sing? Hopefully, some people don't even sing them daily, but those of us who do sing these words daily, how serious can we be if we don't actually apply them when it comes time to read? Arana kori homani asha. Don't entertain any other aspiration in your mind. It's like blinders. This is the intensity of that statement by Narottam Das Thakur. One of the many reasons I've mentioned before, one of the many reasons that Prabhupada told us to sing this song every day is because it is so deep. And it is everything that we need to make advancement is in that song. In Mumbai once, ecstatic Guru Puja going on, but Srila Prabhupada was very conscious, and he noticed, where's Tamal Krishna Goswami? He's not here. So he called someone over, he stopped the kirtan, called someone over and said, find Tamal. Where's Tamal Krishna Goswami? Prabhupada used to call him Tamal. Tamal Krishna. And he was in Prabhupada's office doing something, and Prabhupada told him that never ever miss Guru Puja. If it's at all possible to attend, you should always attend Guru Puja, because, and not just attend Guru Puja, but get into this song. Really meditate. Try to understand, how do I apply this in my life? And then you will make rapid advancement. That's how powerful the song is. So powerful that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur chose to write a Sanskrit commentary on this Bengali song. So some of the same ideas are in that song, of course, that are described here in this verse. Jahara prasade bhai bhava todiya jai, Krishna prapti hoi jaha haite. So Prabhupada had this idea that, and Sridhar Swami has given us this idea that if you don't have a taste for hearing, and therefore cannot sever your karmic bondage, then you have to serve the pure devotee. And I think it's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, back to the third canto, chapter 25, verse 25, he says, it's not the same effect if you serve someone who's not a pure devotee. He's a devotee, he's even devotee in good standing, even a respected devotee. But if he's not completely sinless, then the same effect will not be there. What is that effect? Bhavanti hrit karna rasayana katha. The Krishna katha becomes like a medicine that purifies your heart. We see this, especially in Vrindavana we see this, because every day there's a Srimad Bhagavatam Katha Gyan Yajna, Sangeet Mai, Rasamayi, everything there. They're giving professional Bhagavad Kathas, but the people are not purified by that because the speaker himself is not necessarily pure. He's just making a living. So it's very, very important that we serve the pure devotee and hear from the pure devotee. There's a tendency, even in ISKCON, unfortunately, we only want to hear from our own spiritual master, and we don't even care to hear from Srila Prabhupada. That's a big mistake. If you cannot hear your founder Acharya, it's a big mistake. You will not make the same advancement, I think. So, a very important thing. Great Mahat Seva, this is Prabhupada's translation. If you serve devotees who are actually completely freed from all vice, then you get Mahat Seva. Great service is done. He's taking it in that way, as an adjective of Seva. And then by that service, you gain the affinity for hearing about the messages of Vasudeva. So, bhavanti hrit karna rasayana. The medicine is always there, but the medicine will not be very sweet. And the josh, the enthusiasm will not be generated. And it's that enthusiasm only that places you on the path beyond birth and death. Tat joshanat, when you're feeling a wonderful taste by hearing ever new things, in not necessarily new things, old things, but somehow in a mystically ever new way, because the pure devotee is able to make this knowledge come alive. Vidyavadhu jivanam, person who has dedicated his life to Sankirtana, for that person the knowledge is itself alive. That's what it means. Mama virya samvit. They're all describing virya samvit as topics about Krishna or realizations about Krishna that are very potent. They become potent if the speaker is pure. And it's relative. To the extent that the speaker is not pure, then they become less potent. It becomes less medicine. It purifies us less. And it becomes less relishable. Just like children, everybody knows, children are not going to take medicine unless it has sugar. When children have a cold, you give them cough syrup. It's always got to have tons and tons of, fructose, high volume of corn syrup in it. Otherwise, the children are not going to take interest. So, Krishna Katha is like this, but it becomes sweet and it becomes medicinal to the degree that the person we're hearing from is actually pure, sinless, punya tirtha. This is the idea. So then by serving that person, how do you serve that person? You hear what he has to say, and then you do what he's saying. Not that we chant, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Kori Aikya, but no, I don't have time to read when it comes down to actually applying it. Not good. So these are a few things. So our time is out now, trying to abide by the 8:30 rule. And I guess we can stop here, although there's so much more to say. Just let me close in again reminding you all that Shraddharatir Bhaktir Anukramishati refers to this process that Rupa Goswami has delineated further in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. We have to go in stages. We cannot relish real ruchi until we have finished the process of anartha-nivritti and have become stable in that situation. It's a deeper thing than we would like to say. People speak very freely of even prema, what to speak of, ruchi or other aspects of real spiritual life, but it's not so cheaply as half-educated people take it. It's actually a deep, very deep thing. And it's only revealed to those who actually act on what they hear. Otherwise, as Krishna says in chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita, a person who's not following this process carefully, that he won't understand everything. Even if he tries to understand, he can't understand because he actually doesn't want to. He'd rather understand sense gratification. So, very, very important verse. And the whole chapter, as I said, the next verse that we've already recited, Shrinvatam Sukata Krishna, and Nashta Prayeshu Abhatreshu. So the whole string of verses, every single one of them is widely quoted throughout Srila Prabhupada's books. Every single one of them has foundational value for anyone who would, cultivate bhakti. So it's very important for us to understand these things and to try to enter a little deeply into this great contribution that we've been given in the form of the Bhaktivedanta purports. Srila Prabhupada has perfectly summarized and synthesized and simplified the commentaries of all of his predecessors, and so if we very carefully study what he has to say and sincerely try to apply it daily, all day, every day, then we make very rapid advancement. And we go through these stages very quickly. Shraddharatir Bhaktirana Krameshati. Shraddha means faith, Rati means prema, and everything that's in between. Any questions or comments? 8:32. Yes. Good question. It takes one to know one, so how is an impure person supposed to recognize somebody who's actually pure? Well, there are objective symptoms. We discussed this a little bit last night in the Bhagavad Gita class. If you take H2O, anybody who takes H2O, two particles of hydrogen, one of you're going to get water. There's no other way around it. Similarly, we're given the symptoms of those who are pure devotees in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and beyond those basic symptoms that should act as our guidelines, there is an element of faith. Ultimately, we have to just place our faith in someone, because we can't know the consciousness of another jiva, which is not possible. And we can hardly know also even the consciousness of the Supreme Lord. We don't even know what we want half the time. So there are standard symptoms. What are some of them? He has to come in Guru Parampara that's bona fide. He also has to represent that Parampara because many people are coming in a bona fide Parampara, but are they representing it? And he has to demonstrably follow the vidhis and the nishedhas that are given in the Shastra, that is to say the injunctions and the prohibitions. He has to be following the process that Rupa Goswami outlines in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu pretty objectively, as Prabhupada always used to say, it's the science of Bhakti Yoga, and so you can tell. If he doesn't chant Hare Krishna, then how can he be a bona fide guru? He has to be chanting. If he's not reading Prabhupada's books, then how can he guide you properly? He has to be following the process. So these guidelines are there, but ultimately it is a leap of faith we have to make. But we have a pretty good, the parameters are pretty broad for understanding who's a spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master, and beyond that we have to take help from the Paramatma within the heart as best as we can. Naturally, some people will not be able to do that, they will be misled. But if we're sincere, Krishna always helps. What does he say? In multiple places in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Dadami buddhi yogam tam. He says, Tanstataiva bhajami aham. Ityadi. Yeah, everything. Yes. So, Krishna will always help if we're sincere. But there are guidelines, and we should respect those guidelines, and we should apply them. Is that okay? Answer the question. Anything else? Prabhuji all the way in the back, Brahmachari, because you're writing something. I'm just wondering if you're hearing. Any questions? No, I didn't think so. Yes. No, it's honest. If you don't know something, you have to tell them. It's an offense if you say you know something that you don't know. It's an offense to concoct something instead. Which offense is that? That's the sixth offense. You just make something up. So yeah, no, you have to be honest. If you don't know, just say it. There are many people, for whatever reason, we don't want to judge, but they just, This is very common in India also. People they want to help so much, even if they can't help you, still they try. You ask somebody directions. Prabhupada said you have to ask directions 5 times. Because somebody will try to help, even if they don't know what they're talking about, it's not good. So, if we're not certain, I said this in the beginning, if we're not absolutely positive that what we're saying is truth, then it's better to be honest and say, I don't know. Srila Prabhupada, one of the primary characteristics of Srila Prabhupada's purports, one of the things that just really struck me right away when I first started reading Prabhupada's books is he's absolutely certain about everything he says. There's no doubt. He doesn't waver. He's not speculating. This is absolute truth. One time in an airport, that all the devotees used to greet Srila Prabhupada in the airport, and so they were all doing that with thundering kirtan. And the big motley crew of reporters came over to everybody's trying to thrust their microphone in Prabhupada's face to get the biggest scoop. And so one reporter did that, and he asked Srila Prabhupada, which sect of Buddhism do you represent? And Srila Prabhupada just looked at this fool and said, we don't represent this ism or that ism. We're representing absolute truth, and if you're sincere, you'll take it. Would you say that to a reporter? Could you say that to a reporter? This is Prabhupada's greatness. He was absolutely convinced. And he was absolutely convinced because he was absolutely educated. He had heard very carefully. That's something his own spiritual master noted about him. He heard what his guru was telling, and he assimilated it properly, and he was absolutely certain that he had assimilated it properly. So you don't get any hint of any hesitation, anything in Srila Prabhupada's books. He had and he had realized these things also, not just memorized some dogma. He had actually realized it. One time a person asked Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master is supposed to know everything, is that right? And Prabhupada said, yes. And so the person then followed up, well, then how many, offensively, this person followed up, how many windows are there in this Empire State Building? Really challenging nonsense. But Prabhupada didn't miss a beat. Without any hesitation, he just looked at the person and said, how many drops of water are there in a mirage? That was Prabhupada's realization. He could say something like that. Could you say that if somebody asked you that? Srila Prabhupada had this very high degree of empathy and wisdom, realization, purity, bhakti, love, all of them. Srila Prabhupada is manifesting. So how can we not read his books? How can we neglect what he had to say? What he wrote for us only? It's not very grateful, actually. Anyone who's a disciple of Radhanath Swami, you already know. Radhanath Swami is constantly reiterating this point of gratitude is so important to make advancement in Krishna consciousness. What we have been given here is so wonderful, unprecedented, amazing, very rare, and we don't take it very seriously. We're not grateful. So, anyway, these are a few things I thought this verse would be. It's always a nice verse. The whole chapter is nice, any verse. But this is very good for those of us who are struggling to maybe hear what the spiritual master says and approach that ideal of Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya Arana Korihani Asha. All right, anything else? If not, then we should stop here because it's getting late. Thank you very much. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
कीर्तन गान नर्तन प्रभु
भगवान